So I think Kenyans ought to understand that. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to play politics. I am here to do something that will help us turn the page in this country.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your greatest support. You know, there is something that I've really been asking myself here. Any moment I listen to these politicians going to these national television speaking, they normally speak as if they have got zero analysis of what is happening in the country. And they also speak like they are so much unconnected. They don't have that connection between them and us citizens. Like there is that connection between the citizens and the politicians is completely not there. And even the way they reason, the way they think whenever they're speaking, you wonder that who is this guy speaking? Who is this person speaking? Now in this video, I don't want to talk much, but I want you to listen to Makau Mutua, Professor Makau Mutua. That is one of the very many William Samuel Ruto's advisors, and also one of the people that that was appointed on the panel of the compensation of those who lost their lives during the demonstration. That is in 2024 and also in 2025. I want you to listen to the way he was speaking when he was being interviewed by Ayub on Citizen TV. And then after listening to that, ladies and gentlemen, you drop me your comment in the comment section and tell me what you think concerning what this gentleman was saying. Because according to me, I got irritated by the way. The moment he said, the moment he was trying to say that he's not in government to joke with anybody. Like he's not there to joke with anybody. He's not there to laugh with anybody. He's there to do his work. You know, he's there to just advise the president and do what is necessary. You know, such kind of nonsense. I wanted to listen to this, and then please don't forget to drop me a comment in the comment section. Also, please don't forget to subscribe. Watch this.
What then happens to the physical and the emotional scars for families that have lost their loved ones? Money aside, how exactly are they going to find closure?
Abdulkader, let me just say this. And I want to speak directly to the victims, to their families, and to their loved ones. We can never bring your lost people back. It is not possible. But what we can do is to take that pain and try to respond in such a way that gives, first of all, economic meaning to your lives, and secondly, dignifies you as a victim or as a relative of a loved one. So that must be done. Beyond that, I think there are other aspects of what happened that has caused trauma. There's psychological issues that have arisen out of these demonstrations and clashes between law enforcement and citizens.
Yeah.
One of the things that we want to do is to recommend and to find psychological counseling to those who have been affected. I was listening yesterday, as I said, and the day before I listen every day to victims. And one of the things that they're talking about, beyond compensation, is in fact counseling. Because a lot of these people have been traumatized. And so we think that's important. I do not know whether it is possible for one to find closure for the loss of a loved one. But I think what is possible is for one to get to a point whereby they can realize that their country cares for them, because the way the country has responded to them dignifies them. And perhaps that will provide a sense of healing for the victims and their families.
During the silly seasons, then the argument cannot be that academics and intellectuals like you shouldn't be silly in how they write.
No. Do you know that the most serious advisors to presidents in the United States have come from the top universities in that country? Do you know that?
I remember Obama's national security team.
Yes.
And advisors on other vast areas, including Donald Trump.
Yes, yeah. You remember those advice? They are taken from Yale, from Harvard, from leading universities, and so on. So it is not. There's nothing unusual about academics, advising politicians.
But academics are also critical, and when they see that it isn't working, Prof, they bolt out. Case in point,
exactly.
Ambassador John Bolton, who advised Donald Trump as his national security advisor.
Exactly.
And he said the man is literally not functional. He does not differentiate issues. And he wrote a book entirely about the White House.
Yeah, and I don't think that anyone can argue with that. It's Ambassador Bolton, whom I personally do not like very much because of his politics, was right up on that particular issue. And I think that you can take it to the bank that, I am not in this government to whitewash anything or to cover up anything. I can tell you that. And I can tell you that if things happen that I am not happy with, or that my conscience cannot live with, I'll move out.
You'll resign?
Of course, definitely. Because I'll not be any use to the government, and I'll not be of any use to the president if I cannot tell him the truth. I'm here because I'm able to tell the president the truth.
Does he listen to advice?
He does. He does. He does. How do you think, the actions that he has taken, for example, to appoint, this panel, came about? It was their logic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personally, as Professor Makau Mutua,
yes,
you have advised Odinga before. He's one of his chief strategists with the birth of the National Super Alliance, NASA,
yes,
in 2017, now advising the president.
Yes.
How would you convince Kenyans that this is not a political pact for 2027?
Politics is dynamic. You know that very well. And no politician is static. No politician is static. Just look at the realignments that have taken place since the election in 2022. Okay? It's dynamic. It's a dynamic landscape of politics. I think what distinguishes politicians who have national interests at heart against those who don't is the actions that they take when there's a national crisis. And I want to say that this particular pact that has taken place, and you saw in March this year, the memorandum of understanding that was signed between ODM and UDA, you saw that. And you saw the 10-point agenda in that memorandum. If you look at that memorandum and those 10 points there, those 10 points respond to the most urgent issues and problems facing our country. In fact, they address the totality of the issues that the Gen Zs were concerned about. How can someone be opposed to that? Okay? There's now a committee that has been constituted, as you know very well, chaired by Professor Zani, that is looking at the implementation of that MOU. Incidentally, my own panel of compensation of victims of riots and protests is part of the 10-point agenda. There was an item there regarding compensation for victims. So the two leaders are moving deliberately to address the concerns of Kenyans. So I do not know what else people can do. 2027 will come. And I'm sure there will be political reality.
Of state made comments
about
corruption.
Yes.
And the bicameral setup becoming centers for extorting money from governors and ministers.
Yes.
If there is any evidence, have you spoken with the president to provide that evidence of lawmakers who are doing so?
First of all, let me say that our legislature is bloated. And our politics are politics of rent-seeking. In other words, our politics are just simply dirty. Members of Parliament, I think, start raising revenue by using their committees from the time that they are elected. And they spend all that time to the next election extorting, citizens to raise money, to fill their coffers. we have to do something about that, about the corruption in the legislature. I don't think that anyone in this country would deny that our members of parliament are not the most ethical people on the planet. That's a fact. The president does not need to be told by me that these things are happening in parliament. You heard him speak openly himself. And instead of members of parliament taking it upon themselves to address that issue, they became cantankerous. I mean, look, so for example, the question of NGCDF, for example, that's a blatant violation of the Constitution. The point that the Right Honourable Raila Odinga has been making. How can members of parliament, whose job is to represent, to oversight, and to legislate, start implementing projects using money? That is just a blatant unconstitutionality. So I think when those things are mentioned to them, they do not want to listen to that. I know it's a political hot potato, but I think it takes someone of the stature of the Right Honourable Raila Odinga to call it out. And the president to say that you guys are engaging in corruption. And I think Kenyans want a president who can say that. And he is saying it. So I do not understand where a wrong has been committed by the president calling out corruption within the legislature. And I think that the agencies that are responsible, I'm sure they have the evidence of this corruption. I'm sure they do.
Okay. Intellectual side of your argument, especially on societal issues. But the
Correct.
manner in which you have penned about the former deputy president was all but interesting. And you are now admitting that at some point the prof, the intellectual, can at times shed off that intellectual skin and behave like a Kenyan politician.
No, not at all. I'm saying that we are campaigning, and I was advising one side. What I want to say is that the election was finished, all right? And we engaged with the president, the current president, and we decided to help him run the country as a political formation in Azimio. And we came on board, and we're helping him run the country. There's nothing wrong with that. And
has he changed?
And I would have to say also that, people are dynamic, okay? And like I said before, we only have one country. If this president fails as a president, we as a country fail. And the next thing we will do, if he fails and we fail as a country, we'll have to point at ourselves as ones who have failed. Okay? So the choice of working with him is not something that anyone should condemn. This is our government. This is our country. Okay? We can work in it, and we should be able to work in it. And we are doing it to make a difference. And to your question as to whether the president is different, all I can tell you is that he listens to advice. Because I've sat with him many times. He listens to advice.
Okay. Yeah. Personally, as Professor Makau Mutua,
yes,
you have advised Odinga before. He's one of his chief strategists with the birth of the National Super Alliance, NASA,
yes,
in 2017, now advising the president.
Yes.
How would you convince Kenyans that this is not a political pact for 2027?
Politics is dynamic. You know that very well. And no politician is static. No politician is static. Just look at the realignments that have taken place since the election in 2022. Okay? It's dynamic. It's a dynamic landscape of politics. I think what distinguishes politicians who have national interests at heart against those who don't is the actions that they take when there's a national crisis. And I want to say that this particular pact that has taken place. And you saw in March this year, the memorandum of understanding that was signed between ODM and UDA. You saw that. And you saw the 10-point agenda in that memorandum. If you look at that memorandum and those 10 points there, those 10 points respond to the most urgent issues and problems facing our country. In fact, they address the totality of the issues that the Gen Zs were concerned about. How can someone be opposed to that? Okay? There's now a committee that has been constituted, as you know very well, chaired by Professor Zani, that is looking at the implementation of that MOU. Incidentally, my own panel of compensation of victims of riots and protests is part of the 10-point agenda. There was an item there regarding compensation for victims. So the two leaders are moving deliberately to address the concerns of Kenyans. So I do not know what else people can do. 2027 will come. And I'm sure there will be political reality, not what we say. And I just want to say this, by the way, that, it's like we live in an era of disinformation and discontent, where everything anyone does is being questioned, okay? And every person who has an access to a Twitter account or to a Facebook account has an opinion. In the midst of this noise, which is part of democracy, we should not forget good acts and good policies that are implemented by the government. And the appointment of this panel is one point of daylight in this long-running saga of the relationship between the police and our citizens during demonstrations. It's a fact, and you know it. It did not begin yesterday. It's gone back to the 80s, gone back to the 70s, gone back to the 2000s. It's always been there. And this is why I said earlier to you that what we want to do is not simply to compensate. We want to make far-reaching recommendations for change so that we can begin to perform the rights of assembly differently. Because that is the only way, Abdul Kader, that we can protect our democracy. Like I said to you, our democracy is young. It's only 15 years old, okay? There are other democracies which are much older than ours. You've seen in the United States, you've seen the spasms that are now taking place there, some reversals of the democratic project. If they, who are several hundred years old, in their democratic experiment are having all these difficulties, what about us who are 15 years of age? I think we should commend ourselves and we should be cognizant of the fact that what the president has done is important. It opens a new chapter. It acknowledges that wrongs were done and it seeks to correct those wrongs by confronting them, not by hiding from them. And I think that's a very wonderful and honorable thing to do. I just want to say this to you as well, Abdul Kader. This is my life's work. It's my life's work. I have taught law for over 30 years. I have taught transitional justice issues for over 30 years. I have taught human rights issues for over 30 years. I am the founding chairman of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Okay? I have a track record. I am one of the framers of the 2010 Constitution. When the president agreed to take on this sort of noble task of appointing us to implement compensation for victims, I saw a great opportunity for the work that I've done for my entire life. So I think Kenyans ought to understand that. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to play politics. I am here to do something that will help us turn the page in this country.
And in hold, is it, Prof, because of exogenous pressure from the executive? IPOA constantly decries underfunding in undertaking its mandate. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, taxpayer funded, the president disputed the numbers 6 days after Parliament was breached, saying that their figures were incorrect. Ideally then, and having talked about Parliament, as he did, accusing the House of corruption, the bicameral setup, these are institutions that ideally have not been granted the space to work, is it, by the executive?
I do not agree with you, Abdulkader. I think that our Parliament is very robust. I think it acts independently, quite often, without heeding any pressures from the outside. I think the issue that the President was addressing with respect to Parliament was a question of corruption. And I think he pointed out, and rightly so, that in certain parliamentary committees, a lot of graft is going on. And that's a fact. And I think it is right for him to point it out, and it is now incumbent upon the leadership of the legislature to address these issues. So I think it is, I've talked about how in a democracy the system works. There's separation of powers, and there are three arms of government. The three arms of government are independent, but they are also interdependent. They work together. People do not understand that the judiciary, for example, is part of the state. So is the legislature. So all these arms of government must work together for things to happen in this country, so that they can deliver for the people of this country. But I think there are people in this country who tend to read the Constitution as though it was a newspaper. The Constitution is not a newspaper. It is a very serious document. It has deep meaning. If you look at its clauses, what you are required to do is to read it holistically as one document. And so this idea of trying to segregate the three arms of government as though they should not work together is a mistaken reading of the Constitution.
Yeah. Okay. This is so let's sample the feedback.
Yeah.
And by the way, you have so many advisors on different categories. And we have done so with Moses Kuria, who was here. And you are the next advisor who advises the president on constitutional and human rights matters. How much do advisors earn?
Are you asking me how much?
What is your monthly salary?
Why is that important?
Because you are advising a state property. Who is the president?
I'm paid the equivalent of a cabinet secretary.
So is it roughly 800, 700,000?
I'm sure you have the figures in your back pocket.